Welcome to Ask the Tech Coach, brought to you by the TeacherCast Educational Network. If you are in charge of professional development and looking to build an innovative digital learning experience, this is the podcast for you. Join us each week as we uncover strategies that tech coaches are using to drive their digital transformations one classroom at a time. And now for your host, with over 2 decades of experience working with tech coaches and ed tech companies from all around the world, Jeff Bradbury.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to the TeacherCast Educational Network. My name is Jeff Bradbury. Thank you so much for joining us today and making TeacherCast your home for professional development. This is Ask the Tech Coach podcast, episode number 203, and today we're talking to a pretty fantastic educator from Chicago who's not only a department chair, but she also is doing some great work in the world of virtual coaching. And today we're going to be talking all about why it's important for coaches not just to be focused on the 3rd grades, the 5th grades, the biologies, but also your special subject areas. Your math is great, but how do we bring that into music class? What can we do with our visual arts? What can we do in our library medias? What can we do in our physical education classes? How can we make sure as coaches we are advocating for every single educator so we really can be advocating for every single student? If this is a topic that hits home, we want to hear from you. There's, of course, a great thread over on our Instructional Coaches Network over on LinkedIn and on Facebook. You can head on over to askthetechcoach.com. Sign on up today. There's a link all the way at the bottom of askthetechcoach.com where you can join it. We are, as I'm saying this right now, over 750 members strong. That is unbelievable. My goal is to get us past 1,000 by the time September 1st rolls around. So if you know anybody who's an instructional coach that's looking for a great professional development network, this is one for you. And we've got a lot of things going. Head on over to the Instructional Coaches Network over on Facebook or LinkedIn today. We would love to have you guys today. Now, let's talk a little bit about where you are. You might be starting off the school year going, what do I need to do? You might be starting off working with your buildings going, how do I get in? My friends, the best thing I can do and the best thing that I can share with you is to jump yourself onto Twitter. I have found over the last few weeks so many amazing and thriving Twitter hashtags for instructional coaches. EduCoach is one. ET Coaches. I like to use hashtag Ask the Tech Coach, Tech Coach EDU, but I've also found some new ones popping up. Teachers on Twitter, EDU on Twitter, K-12 Twitter, Coaching Matters, of course. There's a lot of these coaching hashtags. I'm kind of working right now on a blog post to wrap all this stuff up, but there's just no excuse right now. Find a tribe, find a community. I hope, of course, that you grow and join our Instructional Coaches Network on Facebook and LinkedIn. But my advice for you as you're listening to this, like this show, subscribe to this show, share this on your socials, share this with others. Do something this year to help you take that step forward. And if you don't know what that is, let me know. We recently did a nice live show a few days ago. We had some coaches come together and talk all about job interviews. And we did like 2.5 hours of job interview mastermind. It was kind of neat. We did a lot of role playing. And that came from the Coaches Network. Somebody reached out and said, I have a job interview. I need help. And next thing we knew, we had a nice 2.5 hour long conversation, and we helped that coach go through their job interview. If this describes you, we are here to help. This is Ask the Tech Coach. My name is Jeff Bradbury. I've been an instructional coach for the last 10 years, and I am so happy and thankful that you guys have decided to make TeacherCast your home for professional development for the last 11 years. My guest today is a fine arts department chair in Chicago, where she also has her own special practice of instructional coaching, but not just instructional coaching, digital instructional coaching. And I am so excited to have a fellow music teacher on the show today. I want to bring on somebody who was recently featured at the 2022 ISTE conference, Miss Carmela Berthia. Carmela, how are you today? Welcome to Ask the Tech Coach.
Hey, thank you so much. Yeah, I'm fine. I'm happy to be here.
I am so excited to have you here. You know, we were talking a little bit earlier. I very rarely get a chance to talk music teacher to music teacher, instructional coach to instructional coach. For those who aren't familiar with a little bit of your work, tell us a little bit about what's going on these days in Chicago.
So like you said, I'm a fine arts chair. I've always really been interested in technology, and I've always been a person people knew was able to like work with all the apps and stuff like that. And then when the pandemic hit, I was like, well, I can help a little bit, and that little bit turned into a lot of a little bit. And so now I'm kind of like a go-to for a lot of people for how to use the Google apps and how to use certain software, and just how to help teachers get adjusted to this new tech thing that they've all been thrown into.
And that's an important place to start here, right? Because as an instructional coach and even as a department chair, I'm assuming that in Chicago, like around the country, teachers are getting ready to come back. That's a weird thing to say. We're recording this on July the 12th here. I'm just starting my summer, but we were talking to people on Twitter recently who have already gone back. What advice are you giving to your teachers, whether it be your music teachers or your classroom teachers, about starting this school year on a positive note, on a digital learning note? What advice do you have for any instructional coach that's trying to plan out their school year right now?
My biggest piece of advice is always that the technology is a tool. So it's not the end all be all, because sometimes like during the summer, we do all this PD and we're like, oh my gosh, I found this new app and it can do this and it can do that. And this is going to be great. And my students are going to love it. And then you sit down with your students and they hate it. And they're like, well, I'm going to make them, some teachers like, I'm going to make them love this app. And you don't have to do that. If it doesn't work for that classroom, same as anything else, get to know your students, get to love on your students, find out what they need, find out what you need. And the tool that you love may not be the tool that's best, So just take the time to get to know your students, and then from there, move into the tools that are going to work best for them.
It's so important to know, and we talk about this in every episode, it's all about the relationships, right? Whether it be a coach and a teacher, or a teacher and a student, or in your case, a department chair and your staff, having those conversations and building those relationships or rebuilding those relationships. This is the time to have those conversations and just do those, hey, how you doing? Those little check-ins.
No, absolutely. This is the time to get to know as many. I like to walk through the hallways and get to know as many kids as I can, whether they're in my classroom or not. Pretty much everybody on campus has seen me at some point, because it's important. There are some students who don't necessarily speak up and, get to develop those relationships with their teachers, but if they get to see you enough, especially if you're like high school, or if you are like, a special area teacher in elementary school where every kid's going to pass through your classroom, developing those relationships in the hallway, and especially with like your new staff, if you are an instructional coach, developing those relationships in the hallway and in passing are so important, because it naturalizes. It makes your relationship natural. It doesn't feel forced, which it shouldn't be. If you love people, if you love working with people, it should be natural to have those conversations.
One of the things that I'm excited about today is this concept that we were talking about this a little bit earlier, of instructional coaches spend their times in the classrooms, but a classroom is more than just fifth grade, social studies, biology. Today, I'm excited to share a little idea about why instructional coaches should be thinking more than just the traditional classroom. Now, you and I, of course, are music teachers by trade and by heart. And I know for myself, one of the first places that I go to find my generals, those people that are going to kind of, be those teachers who you're going to be able to, work with every day, help every day, talk with every day, are those special area teachers. Talk to us a little bit about why it's important for coaches to think not just in fifth grade, but really in your arts, your maths, your library media specialists, your phys eds. Why is it important that coaches keep all staff members in mind?
Well, because there's so much for us to do. right? I mean, as a music teacher, as a 21st century music teacher, you cannot teach about the music that anybody has listened to within like the last 2 or 3 decades without involving technology in it, because so much of our music is electronic now. You know, it's not the way that it was, what, 60 years ago? We'll say 60 years ago, where, most of it was just technology was just being used as a tool to feed in the audio. Now the technology is actually creating those sounds, right? A lot of my kids they get excited when they see anything that can make beats and light up. You know what I'm saying? They acknowledge that that's an instrument for them. And if my students understand that that's an instrument, then I need to be teaching them how to use that instrument, right? And even with the visual arts, right? There's so much graphic design, everything that they watch, Pixar and everything like that. That's all technology that's being used to create those images, right? Computer science speaks for itself. I think, but there's so much integration that happens in the things that they see day to day. And if we want to set them up for their futures, then we have to, a lot of times we start behind the curve. We don't really set them up to be able to use these tools early, in the same way as we would if they're in English classroom. Okay, I know they have to use a word processor if they're going to be doing this, that later on. We don't do that for them in music and in art and in the other specials, and I think it's important that we set them up in the same way.
How do we go about doing that? I think of a traditional music teacher as, violin, band, orchestra, chorus, and stuff like that. And I understand that creating beats, the garage band stuff, like all of that's music, that's instrumental, but that's not, traditional Euro, classical, whatever that right word is here. How do we bring in these digital learning skills without trying to convince a arts teacher, music teacher, that they should drastically change the curriculum that they're used to?
I hear you on that. And I think largely in the way that I started using technology, I didn't start with having my students make beats or record. My love for educational apps, especially music educational apps, came out of the fact that I needed more time, right? There are so many music teachers who have easily 60, I know some of my colleagues have 90 kids in a period. And how do you hear every single kid authentically during that time? You don't. You can't know where everyone is all at one time. But if you're using apps like Music First or like for music theory, there's a good one called Tone Savvy. If you're using those kind of apps, and then you can kind of authentically see where your students are. I can sit down, even without using the app, I can sit down and I can go in a Google Classroom and I can say, hey, I need everybody to record themselves playing from measure 77 to measure 95, right? And then if that's our trouble spot that we're working on, and then I can hear students play, and I know where they are, I know what mistakes that they're making, I can hear each and every one, especially if it's just like one section, I'm like, something just seems way off. I can find out where that kid is in a way that I wouldn't be able to do in the classroom, just walking around, walking through, and I can give them authentic feedback in an easier way. And that's still using technology, and that's using it authentically in my classroom in a way that doesn't make me feel like I have to like all of a sudden become Kanye West.
We're going to make sure that we have links to all of the applications and stuff that we just mentioned on the show. Of course, this is episode number 203 for Ask the Tech Coach. Talk to us a little bit about working with these teachers. I would imagine that walking in with this concept of turning a traditional visual arts class into graphics design, I mean, I've tried this and I've worked basic with things like Google Drawings, with Google Slides, and for some art teachers, they'll run with you. And for some, it scares them. Maybe they are traditional artist, painter, sculptor. They're not familiar with, or they don't really have the confidence in bringing in a digital medium, whether it be for one lesson, a half a semester, anything like that. When you're looking at building those relationships, what advice would you have for introducing those topics? I mean, Camille, I wouldn't just want to walk into your room and go, hey, I'm your instructional coach. We're going to try graphic design. I might say something a little bit less aggressive, right? How would you bring up some of these topics to start the conversation rolling?
I mean, you think about even like with students, how do we work with students who are nervous or apprehensive, right? Because we're all human beings. So I wouldn't force it on the teacher. If the teacher is just like, no, I don't want to do it, then hey, we'll see, how we can integrate some other kind of way. But if it's just like I want to do this and I'm nervous, then we take it step by step. We scaffold, we do little by little. We don't want to overwhelm. It might just be that today we figure out how to open up, so just what you're saying, just using Google. Today we figure out how to open up Google Drawings. You know what I'm saying? Today we figure out, how to use, if there is the availability of a smart board, how we use the smart board and how we actually use the markers on the smart board and how we put, so it might just small steps to help to get those teachers acclimated with using technology, and not it just very light substitution, little by little. And I think that helps a lot. And then when you find those places where there's a spark, so, maybe, I know like, I know we talked about Google Drawings, but I know that also there's a lot with PowerPoint that you can do with their animation. I've seen some teachers take PowerPoint and make almost like these animated intros using music and stuff like that with PowerPoint. If there are these little things that spark those teachers, of hey, I really like this, I want to learn how to do that, then start with them from where their spark is. Move them in slowly into the technology, step by step. Don't get frustrated with them because, it takes a while. And then go from where their spark is.
I love that. That sounds like it needs to be on a mug or on a t-shirt or something. Start with their spark. And, as you're sitting there, I remember working with my art teacher this year. I walked in and, hey, have you tried this, and this? And nope, I'm good. But if you happen to follow up and make those relationships, then when you walk in and you see them doing a great lesson, you can say, hey, in your next lesson, would you be comfortable with me trying something with them? So now that digital component is just an extension of what they've already done, rather than trying to start with, we're going to be completely different, right? And so that's how you start that co-teacher relationship. That's how you start that guide on the side thing. That's how you make sure that you are being a part of it. And now you're being helpful. You're not coming in and saying, everything you know is wrong. We're going to go over here.
Look, absolutely. Because that's what it can feel like sometimes. As a music teacher or as a fine arts teacher, especially because, or any special teacher, a lot of times, especially if you're in the elementary school world, it can feel like you have been ostracized, that you are either like you are hired help sometimes, or that, you're just forgotten. And so that feeling of constantly sometimes being rejected in staff meetings, just being real, can carry over to the classroom. And then, if now you're telling me that like the one thing that I hold is now not good enough, I am going to probably be a little bit more apprehensive. I love the way that you just said that it's important that we acknowledge that, the work that is being done is important.
One of the things that we have in common as instructional coaches is our music background. And I try to use that as an advantage, because I can walk into these, it's the only classroom I can really walk in and go, when I was a music teacher, or when I was teaching this skill, I remember doing, which is a bonus if you can walk in and say, hey, when I was teaching fourth grade, I did this. But I often find that when I walk into an orchestra class and I go, when I taught music for 20 years, sometimes teachers feel a little intimidated by that. Oh, you know more than me. You're walking in. I don't know how. Please get away, right? Like, let me just learn and do my thing. But I think it's important to build those relationships. And, you mentioned something that, always has to be discussed. We are the ones that want 100 kids and still complain because we don't have 150, right? So we want to have as many kids as possible. We want to be able to take on the world. We want, because really, what is our primary job as music teachers? To build, grow, and pass on a program. And I now need to worry about Chromebooks and Google and stuff. No. I just want to have them paint a picture. So being that extra person in the room to really help and provide and to show, it's all about just making possibilities come up there. Our job really is, as music teachers, I believe is one thing. It's to inspire. And as a coach, I always preach, it's to inspire. Now, one of the ways I know that you're inspiring teachers is by your creativity. And I want to take a left turn here and talk about something that I know you're interested in and passionate about. You've been creating resources, instructional guides, templates, and things on a great site called Teachers Pay Teachers. Tell us a little bit about your work there. How did it start? How can resources like that be used as instructional coaches to help build those relationships in the classrooms?
Yeah. I started making resources on Teachers Pay Teachers so I started uploading my resources to Teachers Pay Teachers. I started making resources because I needed resources, and there were no resources out there for me. And when I started teaching, there was no budget for curriculum, and my kids needed to learn. And so I started making up my own stuff. I started trying to make sure that I had things that my students related to, that were authentic, and that helped them actually learn what they wanted to learn. I've used Teachers Pay Teachers in those early days too, because I'm like, oh shoot, I want to teach them this movie. I wonder if there's a resource on there for this movie. And sometimes there is, sometimes there isn't. So it's a great site to be able to quickly see what other teachers are doing who are actually in the classroom. It's not made by some company. It's made by other resources that are made by other teachers. I know that I often, when I see that something works with my students, I'll make worksheets for my students based off of those lessons that have failed a few times and that we finally found a niche for. And I'll make those resources and I'll post those on my website. On my storefront on Teachers Pay Teachers. I know that other teachers have made, like I said, like question and answer sheets. There are teachers who have made resources for smart boards and things like that. So you can actually find things that may be more tailored towards your classroom or towards your teacher that you wouldn't be able to find in another store. And usually it's not that expensive when you compare it to like another type of resource.
The links for Carmela's Teachers Pay Teachers store is in our show notes over here. I hope you guys have a chance to check it out over at episode number 203. And I bring up these resources, and this is kind of tying back in, Carmela, to our previous conversation here of when you do have so many different levels, right? Ability levels, playing levels, artsy levels, and you're working with every single student in the building. It is difficult to find the time to put these resources together. And I think that's why it's important for instructional coaches to really help be a friend, if I can use that term, be an advocate. I know for myself, I'm often in administration offices and district offices advocating for my coach, not just my coaches, but really for my music teachers, for my art teachers. Hey, if we had this document camera, they'd be able to do this. Hey, if we had this application, they'd be able to do this. Do you want to see this stuff on the wall? If they had this, then we would be able to move the school forward and build a culture, etc. Talk to us a little bit about what we can do in and out of the classroom to help enhance, support, suggest, and again, be that advocate to administration when those music teachers and art teachers are full and going crazy with their schedule.
Okay. So I want to touch on something that we've touched on a little bit, but we haven't necessarily addressed. Before I go into that, we talked about, you talked about like how an arts teacher or specialist teacher, and their job is to inspire, right? And as tech coaches, we inspire too. But a part of the advocacy is that we're also there to serve, right? And in the classroom with the teacher, our job is to serve, to make sure that whatever they're doing, we are serving them and we are helping them to, authentically do what they want to do through tech. It's not that okay, I'm gonna give you this new tool. Is that if this new tool serves you, here's something that you can use, right? And so in the same way with, taking it back to our administrators, right? I am the advocate for my fine arts department. If one of my teachers needs this, then I have to go back to admin and see how we can get this thing done. And a big part of that is also just knowing your admin, right? So just like we know our teachers, you know what your admin needs. What is your admin trying to do for this? What is the school's vision? What are they trying to do? How is your administrator? What's their really core focus? And then take what's going on in your department and present it in a way as much as possible to your admin in a way that's going to serve what they need for the school, because sometimes they may not be able to see what you're doing. I'm lucky right now where I have administrators that can see what I need. But I've had administrators who have no idea of why it's important for a kid to even pick up a flute, or why it's, what a kid could be learning when they're just, putting their hand on a sheet of paper with some paint. I don't understand what the importance of, any of this stuff is. And being able to translate that into their language in a way that they can see the importance of it, that's important. So as you have to advocate for teachers by also thinking like an administrator.
Yes. I absolutely, right? And this is where, for myself, the last couple of years has been extremely valuable, not only by going through and earning my admin degree, but learning the language, learning about how to speak in numbers, how to speak in charts and graphs and data, how to help my other coaches really figure out how to advocate for themselves. It's not just the paper that shows up on the wall, but making sure that we have a way to get what we want and when we need, because all teachers are here. One of the harder things about when you're looking at digital learning skills and tools and technologies and all this stuff is the fact that for many art teachers, music educators, phys ed, we're not in the same location, right? Like many people are music on a card, art on a card. So trying to come up with a way to do graphic design and Chromebook, all of these wonderful things, that doesn't always fly if every 30 minutes, 5 of those minutes have to be spent packing up an entire carton, pushing it down the hallway. What advice do you have for coaches and teachers and, fellow musicians and stuff like that are trying to be innovative, but they have 3 rooms that are packed with technology, and then they go to 1 room, same grade, and it isn't. And now you really have to make more than 1 lesson plan. You got to really diversify every single thing that you do based off of the needs of the room, not the needs of the students.
No, that's really good. I think you go from you go from what you know. And it can be really, really hard to not have your own space and for everybody else's space to now be your space. I would say invest in one Chromebook for yourself or one laptop for yourself, and if you can, and one projector. I know, like, when I first started teaching, I got told that I couldn't have a projector because they needed to have that technology available to other teachers. So I bought my own projector my first year teaching. And so with that, having the projector on a cart and being able to switch that between rooms helped a lot. And there are things like there are things that you can do interactively with students, with things like plickers. Plickers is a good way to, like, be able to assess. There are these little cards that you can use, and so it's low tech on the kids' end. If you have like an iPad or a phone, you can scan their cards and you can collect the answers that way. But really, I wouldn't overthink it. I really wouldn't stress out. I wouldn't stress out to the fact of where I'm trying to figure out how do I now make fire from water. That's not going to happen, right? So if you don't have tech, then just sometimes it may be easier to plan your lessons where the tech is a substitution for something rather than like it's this completely newly integrated lesson. But you have to just do what works best for you and what works best for the situation that you have in front of you.
And I think just kind of to put a bow here, you said it perfectly. Do what's best for you, right? Don't try to take on too much stuff. We talked today about building those relationships and really just making sure that, I hear this from so many coaches that they go to an ISTE conference, which we'll get to in a second here, and they want to take on the world on day one. But you still have to come in and build or rebuild those relationships. You still need to come in and figure out where the classroom is, where the teacher is, where the students are, and start from there. It's just an incredible up or down shift for anybody who's coming off of like a huge summer the way so many coaches do with professional development and seeing each other and getting back in. But we're all going to start from day one, which is hi, how you doing? Are you excited about this new school year?
I am. I'm much more excited than I thought I would be, because last year I was like, oh my gosh, we're back. And then last year was like, it was a dumpster fire last year. And so when we got to the end of the school year, we were all just like, "Woo, that's done." But I'm really excited. I got a chance to stop by my school yesterday, and it was so good, like seeing some kids light up when they saw me in the hall. That are there for, like, there are some kids who are there like doing like summer work, summer jobs. Seeing some of them light up, seeing some of them engaged in like activities during the summertime. Some of them engaged in making up summer school work, but still authentically, I'm excited to get back and to work with them and to help them to grow in the areas that they want to grow in. Yeah, so I'm excited.
Before I let you go, I just want to touch a little bit on ISTE. 14,000 educators came together in New Orleans. I know you were down there. I saw some great videos of you talking to our friends, Tom and Sam from the New Ed Tech Classroom. What impressions did you take away from ISTE? What excited you? What are you looking forward to seeing come into education this year?
Okay. I will just say that the expo hall was overwhelming this year, just with the different apps and platforms that were available, to the way everything was presented. there was literally like an RV in there, and all these other kind of really cool things. So I think just the extremes that people went to authentically showcase their products and their apps, that was amazing. It was really cool. LeVar Burton was there this year. He did some speaking. It was really great. We even had there was a whole session that was just for African American women who were in technology, and I was like, oh my God, there's a whole session on that. Just these because it's not a lot of us, but so it was really cool. I'm as a high school teacher, the E-Hall pass, that was really cool for me. I was really excited about some of the new things that Kahoot and Cami are doing with their products. Kahoot's adding like a little number line thing. And as we were doing, I was like, oh, I can add this number line. I can use this for timelines in my classroom. So if I'm talking about a composer on a Kahoot, I can make a timeline, and then they have to find it on the timeline rather than just using it for like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. We can do 1700s, 1800s, 1900s, and they can have to scroll that way. What else was I excited about? That there are a few music apps. There was a new one that I learned about called Charanga Music. That one was really cool. It's like a whole curriculum. And I have a new friend, Victor Menzies, who has a platform called playing with waves, and it helps you to you can actually record in your voice. You can kind of make loops, and you can kind of code using your voice, and you can actually see the sound waves and go into depth with them. So it's really not playing waves, listening to waves. I'm gonna I'm gonna put the link. I'll give you the link to the actual, but it's really cool and it's free. It's free, and it was really fun to play around with. And ear sketch is always that was a lot of fun too.
I had a great time, and the one thing that always supercharges me about ISTE is just getting to see everybody, getting to meet people. You and I connected because I ran down the list and said who's doing some great instructional coaching things. This ability to network with other coaches is extremely valuable, extremely important. And if you're out there listening to this looking to say, how do I reach out to other coaches? Don't forget, you can go over to askthetechcoach.com and check out our free membership sites. We've got a virtual membership site on Facebook, our Instructional Coaches Network, and also on LinkedIn. No matter where you are, we have a great coaches network for you. We even just opened up a brand new coaches group on a brand new website called K12leaders.com. So no matter what kind of instructional coaching resources you look at, we've got a place for you. Carmela, I want to say thank you so much for spending time with us today. Please come back on throughout the year. I'd love to have you spread more musical joy with us. Where can somebody get a hold of you? What's your website? What's your social media?
Okay, so everything is just my name. So everything is pretty much just my name. Twitter at Carmela Berthia. I have a website, carmelaberthia.com. My LinkedIn is Carmela Berthia. The only thing that's not Carmela Berthia is my Teachers Pay Teacher, and that's Musical Me right now. And really, I'm really just here to help. So if you need to vent, or you need support, if you can reach out to me on any of those platforms, and I am absolutely 1000% down to just be an ear or to be hands, whatever you need me to be.
Well, thank you so much for coming on, and we look forward to having you back on. Congratulations on a great summer, and I hope that you have the best school year of your career moving forward.
Thanks. You too, Jeff, and I really enjoyed you as well.
And that wraps up this episode number 203 of Ask the Tech Coach. Don't forget, you can find all of our resources over at askthetechcoach.com. Reach out to us on Twitter at Ask the Tech Coach. Join the Instructional Technology Coaches Network. Not only do we have over 1,000 coaches coming together, not only are we doing live shows, creating great resources, but we have got a lot of great video content coming up at your request. After all, this is called Ask the Tech Coach. You guys are asking for it. We're here to create it. And now that we have a summer behind us, and now we're looking forward to the new school year. Keep an eye on all the stuff happening over at the TeacherCast Educational Network. We have a great summer and fall schedule for you guys. So I want to say thank you guys for making Ask the Tech Coach part of your home for professional development. My name is Jeff Bradbury, reminding you guys to keep up the great work in your classrooms and continue sharing your passions with your students.
You've been listening to Ask the Tech Coach, hosted by Jeff Bradbury of the TeacherCast Educational Network. Please reach out to the show with all of your questions on Twitter at AskTheTechCoach or online at www.askthetechcoach.com. Be sure to subscribe to our podcast so you don't miss any future episodes. And please take a moment to write a review in the App Store.